Hello and welcome to the Let It Ride podcast, coming at you to preview week 14 in the NFL. As always, I am your host, Jeffrey Hooks. Thank you to everybody who tuned in last week, helping to make the week 13 episode the most viewed episode on the season. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Thank you to all my friends on Twitter who reposted the episode. To the new viewers, welcome. Hopefully, you're joining me again this week. Really wish I could have come through a little bit better with the picks. We do go 3-3, so going 500. Not doing too bad last week. Gave out all underdogs. Got a little bit too cute with those underdogs. Underdogs overall did really well in week 13. In fact, two of the winners that we gave out, those underdogs won outright in the Texans and the Jets. But we did have losers on the Titans and Vikings. Got a little bit too cute with those picks. Those were just bad reads on my part. But the Browns, I really felt like should have been in that game. They were up 8-7 late in the first half of that one. End up giving up the field goal right before halftime. They go for a questionable call on a 4th and 1 in the second half that really has that game go off the rails after they fail. They were playing great defense the whole game. I feel like if they had punted, maybe they could keep that game close. And we're talking about a 4-2 week instead of a 3-3 week. But unfortunately, we do get a loser on the Browns as well. However, the teaser of the week coming through for the fourth straight week, we teased the Jets up to plus 8.5. So, and the the Cardinals against the Buccaneers. We teased the Cardinals up to plus 8.5. They lose that game by 3. So the teaser of the week coming through for the fourth straight week, pushing the picks up to 500 on the week. We will look to improve on those numbers in week 14. We're going to start with the Dolphins taking on the Jets. Yes, we're going right back to the Jets. The Jets got us the teaser winner last week. They got us a straight up winner last week. We're going right back to that well. And that is because these New York Jets, believe it or not, 7-4-1 against the spread. That is the fifth best against the spread record in the NFL, behind the Seahawks, the Rams, the Bears, and the Patriots. So four playoff teams, and then coming in at number 5, the New York Jets, that team that's covering every week that you would not think of. So feel like we're getting some value. This team is playing close games. They've covered in 4 games that they haven't won this year. So this is a team that is doing very well against the spread. They're a 3-point underdog at home here against the Dolphins. The over-under sitting at 41.5. The Miami Dolphins run defense is pretty bad. They allow the 5th most yards per carry and the 5th most yards per game in the NFL. They allow the 7th most yards per pass attempt. So this Dolphins defense, not very good. However, the Jets defense on the other side, they don't give up very much yardage, but they have not had an interception yet this season. They are 27th in the league in sacks. So I feel like Tua's going to have some time in this game. And I also feel like this Jets run game is going to be able to get going against a Dolphins defense that I don't think is very good. So in addition to taking the Jets at +3 in this one, I'm also going to be taking the over 41.5. You could just go back to the first matchup between these two teams. It was a 27-21 game. So well over this total set at 41.5. And I really think that the Jets found something. Adonai Mitchell, 100 yards receiving last week. So really getting a big boost from him with the absence of Garrett Wilson. Tyrod Taylor actually giving this team some semblance of a passing offense. One of the reasons I wanted to take them last week. And Tyrod Taylor just continues to do what he's done his whole career. He just covers. He's something like 65% against the spread for his career. Those numbers go up when he is an underdog. Most of the time, Tyrod Taylor is going to be an underdog, but that's beside the point. This guy just covers football games. This team just covers football games. We're going to take the Jets +3 and the over 41.5 in this game. That is going to take us onto the Bengals taking on the Bills. The Bills, a 5.5-point favorite at home. The over-under sitting at 53.5. And I feel like this number is a wild overreaction to that Bengals win over the Ravens. Don't forget, this is a Bengals defense. This has been atrocious all season. They give up the most yards per rush attempt in the league. And last week, you might look at that game and say, oh, they blew the Ravens out. The Ravens got 5.6 yards per carry in that game. They were running the ball down the Bengals' throat in that one. The likely fumble into the end zone really just flipped that game. The Ravens had 5 turnovers. That was the only reason that the Bengals were able to keep the Ravens off the scoreboard. It wasn't because their defense was buckling down and stopping. It was because the Ravens were just coughing the ball up. If you look at the drives that the Ravens had, they had a touchdown, a fumble, a punt, a fumble into the end zone, a pass interference, of offensive pass interference penalty that pushed one of their drives back. They ended up punting on that one. A fumble, a punt, a touchdown, a red zone interception, a failed 4th down, another fumble. the Bengals were not stopping the Ravens in this game. It's not like this Bengals defense all of a sudden just woke up and said, "Oh, Joe Burrow's playing quarterback. I guess we're going to play good now." This is still a very bad defense. And Joe Burrow, I know he got all the credit because the Bengals won that game. He had just 5.7 yards per pass attempt, completed just 52% of his passes. Now, I know that there was some weather in that game, so you can't hold those numbers too much against him, but he was still shaking off some rust, and this Bengals defense is still not very good. I feel like this number should be much higher. This Bills team is a much better football team than this Bengals team. They, like I said, they allow the most yards per play, just most yards per play in general in the NFL, the second most yards per pass attempt. The Bills with the number one rushing attack. So I feel like they're going to really be able to move the ball in this game. Expect a big game from James Cook. They had 250 yards rushing against the Steelers in a game that they really didn't play that well. They still end up running away with it against inferior competition in the Steelers. I think they're facing inferior competition again. Like I said, really think this line should be well over a touchdown with the Bills at home. Don't think the Bengals are going to get the same luck that they had last week and get the 5 turnovers from this Bills team. So give me the Bills minus 5.5. This is probably my favorite play of the week. The Bills know that they need wins down the stretch to get into the playoffs. They know they're likely not going to take over the division with the Patriots running away with it. So the Bills need to get that top wild card spot. So I'm taking the Bills minus 5.5. I think they take this game with absolute ease. That is going to move us on to the Colts taking on the Jaguars. The Jaguars, a 1.5 point underdog at home. The over/under sitting at 47.5. Both of these teams 8-4, tied for the lead in the AFC South. So the winner of this game will be the AFC South leader going into Week 15. The Colts coming in on a 2-game losing streak, and they have a murderer's row down the stretch. So after this game, they're at Seattle, home for San Francisco. They play the Jags again at home, then they're at Houston to close up. So this is a team on a 2-game losing streak that desperately needs to win this game, an absolute must-win game for the Colts, who I think are the better team in this matchup. When you look at points per game, the Colts ranked first in the league. The Jaguars ranked 11th. The Colts allow the 9th fewest points per game in the league. The Jaguars are sitting 12th. The Colts, the 6th best passing offense as far as yardage goes, is 6th in rushing. On the other side, the Jags 21st in passing, 11th in rushing. Overall, the Colts are 4th on offense. The Jaguars sitting at 19th. Third down conversion, the Colts sitting at 11th. The Jaguars sitting at 26 sacks. The Colts are 5th. The Jaguars 22nd. You look at this and you're like, man, how are both of these teams sitting at 8-4? And you look at this Jaguars team and just in total, they're sitting at 8-4. And I can't really pinpoint one thing that they do well, that one go-to guy on the team. Like, I guess Etienne has been okay this year. Trevor Lawrence still hasn't really lived up to the billing of the generational prospect that he was supposed to be. Brian Thomas Jr. has really taken a step back after his really impressive rookie campaign. This is a team that I'm like, I don't know what they do well. And then you dive into the numbers. It's turnovers. All they do is force turnovers. They've forced 20 turnovers on the season. That is the 4th most in the NFL. But you look at the teams that they've played. I mean, they've played Geno Smith, Jake Browning, Jacoby Brissett, Cam Ward. They had a pick 6 on Patrick Mahomes that completely swung that game against the Chiefs. That was their biggest win on the season. So they beat up on bad teams. They got kind of a lucky win against the Chiefs. I don't think this team is very good. I think you see the Colts lean on Jonathan Taylor in a must-win game here. I know no Sauce Gardner really hurts this team, but they got by most of the year without Sauce Gardner anyway. And I really don't think that there's any Jaguars receiver that you're too afraid of, that you're going to be like, oh no, we don't have Sauce. How are we going to stop this guy? Like I said, Brian Thomas Jr. has not really been able to recreate what he did in his rookie season. You have Travis Hunter out for the season. Jacoby Myers, who they just picked up in a trade, kind of a desperation trade by the Jags because they know they don't have a number 1 wide receiver. I don't think the Colts secondary is going to be scared even without Sauce in this one. Like I said, I think Jonathan Taylor has a big game. The Colts are the better team. They are the more desperate team. Give me the Colts minus 1.5 in this one. And that is going to move us on to my 5th pick, and really waffled with this one. Went through every game and found a bunch of reasons not to bet any of these games. We had the Cowboys and the Lions on Thursday night, tomorrow night. As you know, I generally don't give out Thursday picks on this podcast. Whenever I do, they seem to not go very well anyway. The Cowboys are my team. Everybody's riding high on them. Everybody's low on the Lions. The Lions are the favorite in this game. That makes the Cowboys a square dog. So I'm staying far, far, far away from this game. I already care enough about the result of that game. I don't need to have extra skin on that one. The Seahawks taking on the Falcons. The Falcons a 7-point underdog at home. I've been fading Sam Darnold. It kind of kind of keeps biting me. I still don't think he's very good. He hasn't played very well the last few weeks, but that defense is so good going up against Kirk Cousins, staying far away from that one as well. The Titans taking on the Browns. The Browns a 4-point favorite at home. Look, if you're betting on that game, I know I'm kind of the funny person to be saying this because I host a gambling podcast. If you're betting on Browns Titans, I seriously think you need to call the hotline. That one staying far, far, far away. Not putting my money on Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. The Commanders taking on the Vikings, two playoff teams from last year whose seasons are effectively over. Have no idea what the motivations are going to be in that one, staying far away from that game as well. The Steelers taking on the Ravens. The Ravens a 6-point favorite. The over under 42.5. I don't feel like the Ravens should be favored by 6 over anybody, especially in a rivalry game against the Steelers. The Ravens and Steelers always play crazy, close, weird games, but I have no idea what you're getting from the Steelers either. They just laid a complete egg against the Bills. Aaron Rodgers looks to be a walking corpse out there. Lamar Jackson doesn't look like himself. No idea what to expect in this game from these teams separately. You bring them together for the greatest rivalry, arguably in the NFL, and I'm definitely staying away from this one as well. The Bears taking on the Packers, going to earmark this one. The Packers a 6.5-point favorite at home. The line seems slightly disrespectful to the Bears, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. The Rams taking on the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they're an 8-point underdog in this one. They are the team that I cannot quit. This is a team that I was really high on coming into the season. Ended up being dead wrong. I still keep going back to them. I used them in the teaser of the week last week. That feels like a good place to end on the Arizona Cardinals with betting on them this year. Staying far away from that one as well. The Eagles taking on the Chargers. The Chargers a 3-point underdog at home. The Eagles look dead, but the Chargers have no offensive line going up against the Eagles' defensive front, staying far away from that one as well. The Texans taking on the Chiefs. The Chiefs a 3.5-point favorite at home. The over-under sitting at 42. So I wanted to stop on those two games. So I wanted to talk about Bears, Packers, and Texans, Chiefs. Now, at first glance, I'm like, oh, I like both of the underdogs in this game. And then I dove a little bit deeper. I'm like, the Bears, man, are people just really disrespecting the Bears this much? Why are they a 6-point underdog? They're leading the NFC North. This has to be the latest in a season that a division leader has been playing their starters and an underdog by 6 points. You dive into what the Bears have done, though, on this win streak. You look at that win against the Eagles. So they've beaten up on some bad teams leading up to that game against the Eagles. And you're like, oh, well, look at what they did to that Eagles defense. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, why were they able to do what they did to the Eagles? Because the Eagles kept turning the ball over. They couldn't convert on third down. That Eagles team just looks to be a mess. The Bears dominated time of possession in that game, 39-18 to 20 minutes and 42 seconds. They ran 83 plays to the Eagles 51. So, yeah, when you play that style of football, when you keep the other offense on the sideline, you're going to win football games. It's not, that's not rocket science. I don't think they're going to be able to recreate that against a Packers defense that's really good. You go to that win against the Steelers, they got outgained in that game. Really could have lost that when they were losing 17-16 to a pretty bad Vikings team before with under a minute left in that game before a big kick return got them in range to win that game with a field goal. They were down 20-10 to the Giants late in that one before they had a miracle comeback. They had a miracle pass to Colston Loveland to win that game against the Bengals without Joe Burrow. They lost to a Tyler Huntley-led Ravens team. They beat the Bears. They beat the Saints. They beat the Commanders. They beat the Cowboys back before they made all the trades without CeeDee Lamb in that one as well. And then you backtrack after that, and they got the doors blown off them by the Lions, and they lost to the Vikings in the opening week. So none of their wins are really all that overly impressive to me. So at first I thought, man, a 9-3 team, they're being disrespected here. Then I kind of went to the other side, but I don't know if I want to lay 6.5 points with the Packers in a game where the total's only sitting at 42.5. It seems like a lot of points to land, especially when the Packers have played some ugly games this year. So what I'm going to do here is I usually don't like playing moneyline parlays. I usually think that they are square plays. They usually are. But in this instance, the Bears are a square dog. 57% of the moneyline bets are on the underdog in that game. They're on the Bears. 77% of the against the spread bet are on the Bears. So a lot of people backing the Bears, taking the points. Don't feel good enough about it to lay the points with the Packers, but I do feel good enough about it to moneyline parlay Packers with the Chiefs. This is another team that everybody's counting out, and this is a little bit of an emotional hedge for me too. I guess it's really just a regular hedge because I have a lot of futures on the Texans to win the division and make the playoffs. So really need them to win this week. So if the Packers take care of business, I kind of set myself up nicely. Watching the primetime game with the Chiefs. If the Chiefs win, I cash this fifth and final bet. If the Texans win, then I'm well on the way to cashing my future. So I know that was a long, drawn out, just like monologue to get to my final bet, but my final fifth bet of the week, we're going to money line parlay the Chiefs and the Packers. That pays out at plus 101. Backtracking through the rest of my picks, I am taking the Colts minus 1.5. I am taking the Bills minus 5.5 and the Jets plus 3. And finally, the teaser of the week. We're just going to tease two favorites down. No need to get fancy. Taking the Bucks from minus 8.5 down to minus 2.5 against the Saints. Taking the Broncos from minus 7.5 to minus 1.5 against the Raiders. That is going to do it for my picks and the podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening, and I will see you guys next week.